have a locked mailbox, and I've been pretty smug about it. And a couple days ago, I came home from work at 7 o'clock, and someone had actually broken into the locked mailbox.
They've got mine too.
Yeah, it's not a great trend. And related activity in the bog, people needing money for drugs, are not just going to bother White Center. And I would say I don't find it that amusing that White Center is getting turned into a red light district when the lights go down. It's not all that funny to me, because it creates an atmosphere of anything goes. People need money to buy drugs, they can turn tricks to get it, and it's not the greatest.
The prostitution thing is not a new thing.
Yeah.
I used to work on 15th at the wrecking yard for about 10 years, and we'd watch them all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a new thing. So I'm more concerned about the shots being fired in my neighborhood.
Mm.
I live on Myers Way. We called a couple of weeks ago because somebody decided they were just going to go racing their car up and down our street firing shots. I have an 11-year-old stepson that's not visiting my house because of shit like this happening, and nothing seems to ever happen, or it's not calming down any. Why? I want to know why.
Yeah, I wish I could give you the answer. I can't give you the answer of why it's not stopping. It's not for the lack of the effort of the two deputies who are working, from White Center to that area of South Park, Boulevard Park. Two deputies in Skyway. We have 4 deputies that work unincorporated King County in this area from 112th to Roxbury and across to Skyway. We have 2 more deputies that work on Vashon. So we just had some statistics come out internally the other day that shows that our precinct, our unincorporated deputies handle almost 2 to 1 more calls per deputy than any other unincorporated deputy in King County. And so this area is not only busy, but the deputies are really kind of busting their backs. Taking paper, arresting people, making traffic stops. Skyway, we had 2 deputies this summer make a traffic stop. They ended up getting shot at from a car that was trying to kill the people they had stopped. So this it's not for lack of trying on the part of our deputies and their efforts. It's a matter of staffing, and so for me to want more staffing at my precinct means that we have to take staffing away from another precinct or 2 other precincts, and unfortunately we're just not in a position right now as a sheriff's office to sort of start kind of backbiting, and I want to take your 2 deputies because that's going to help my precinct. We're kind of all in this together. We have we have a redeployment plan currently, so we're redeploying some of our detectives throughout our agency, coming back to patrol, supplementing our workforce so that we can kind of keep putting our minimum staffing on the streets. So your complaint, I'm trying to be sympathetic, but that same complaint is echoed in Skyway on a regular basis, that there's shots fired, multiple shots being fired at homes next door to people who are calling saying they're shooting at the house next door to my house. There's suspicious activity that's just ongoing. And so our deputies are, yesterday morning, as an example, our first shift, which is supposed to be the coffee shift, but not at this precinct it isn't. We had the air closed on 3 separate occasions, not all unincorporated, but from unincorporated to Burien to SeaTac. 2 suspects who fled. One had a gun on him, one sluffed the gun, which was found later, but an occupied stolen, which all turned into a pursuit. And then we had not quite a barricaded person, but a barricaded person, all related to a domestic violence where the woman was being held against her will inside the house. So this all happened, before like 10:30 in the morning. That's what's happening at this precinct. Not just unincorporated, but unincorporated, Burien, and SeaTac. This precinct is the busiest precinct in all of King County Sheriff's Office. That's a fact. And so I understand what you're saying, and I wish that we could do something about, the sort of lawlessness you know, people speeding up and down your street and firing rounds and trying to shoot at each other. Just, I don't know, it was probably 6 months ago that the teenager was killed on 15th Avenue when they were shooting back and forth. You know, we don't take that lightly, but you have 2 deputies, you know, and then the assistants of Burien and Seattle, when they come across them, they've got their problems. So, so this is a challenge. I mean, it's a real challenge for our agency and for this precinct.
But from what I remember, the last time you were here, you said it's not for lack of money, it's for lack of deputies.
Nope, what I said last time I was here, we were talking about staffing,
Right.
and so we had vacancies that we couldn't fill. And so it wasn't a matter of whether or not we had the money to fill those vacancies. That's still not the issue. It's just getting people hired and through the program. So we still are carrying our vacancies, and part of our redeployment plan, bringing our detectives from our investigations units out to patrol, is to sort of support those vacancies. And so we're getting people through the academy, and we're getting them into the training program, and some are successful, but many more are not. And so and then we still have a retiring and aged aging, because I'm probably. And so we have an older workforce that are starting to, you know, the lean into the finish line. The end is near. And so trying to keep up with attrition, trying to get people through the academy, the training program, that's what I was referring to this time. We're supplementing that with our redeployed staff, but we still have a good portion of our workforce on a daily basis that are, or they're here on overtime.
At one point, there was, one time NUAC had a presentation from folks who helped, I think it was from the precinct, who would help come out and help set up block watches and things like that. And is that something that, I mean, I'm just thinking that, you know, that is pretty scary when you can't have your children stay with you because there's things like that going on. And are block watches in that area, have they tended to be successful in the past, or is there?
Well, I'll say this, in Skyway, there's a huge participation. I don't know, you know, I'd have to look at it on a map, but my guess is Skyway probably has 80% participation in block watch, maybe higher. You know, throughout Skyway, not just in little pockets. I mean, from Rainier to Renton to MOK, Empire, however you want to call it anymore. But you know, they very, very engaged, very involved, and so we did have some of our reserve deputies that were really active in that, and I think one of them has moved on to be security for North Highline School District, but. You know, Deputy Chivington can help in some regard with that, but really the onus is on the community to kind of get that started, and then, you know, we can assist as much as we can. I mean, again, I try not to overpromise. We're happy to have a storefront deputy to address like the big issues and try to support when and wherever he can. But block watches, it's all about communication. And one thing that Skyway does better than any community I've seen, and I've worked all over King County, they communicate better than anybody. I mean, they just do. And there's lots of examples in East King County where people communicate because they live on large parcels. Skyway does it better than anyone. They just do. Yes.
You know, I can't tell you how much I sympathize with your budget crunch. Because, well, especially in this area, as you said, you've got twice as much work to do as your comrades in other areas. That being said, what can we do to support you in getting more resources? Because, you know, I look at the King County website and all the wonderful little projects they're doing here and there to improve this, to improve that, but it's all for naught if people aren't safe in their homes.
Right. And so the thing that I'll say, which is what I said the last time, currently our precinct is carrying about 8 vacancies. And so we're allocated for those positions. We can't get we can't get the people hired enough, fast enough, which is improving, but we can't get them, we get them out of the academy, some don't make it to the academy, some, once they get out to the program, they fall off. And so that's the challenge. So it's not a matter of, calling up your council member or the sheriff or me and saying, yeah, I want more police officers out there. Well, they're like, great, fill the vacancies that you have, and then we'll talk about the other things. Adding to, getting a traffic enforcement unit, getting your gang unit back on the streets. Currently, our gang unit is redeployed, minus Joe Gagliardi, is redeployed to patrol because we're just trying to fill our vacancies. And so, hopefully it's temporary, but I don't know. But that's the challenge is keeping up with attrition, with a workforce that is getting older. You're looking at them, and getting in and out of the car, you're just like, wow, my hamstring is tight. It just happens. And so and then you have another workforce that's coming in to replace us, and just trying to get them successfully through the program, and that's the challenge.
Well, I think in our area, it's not just something the sheriffs, our community has fallen in this black hole of, we don't have local governance. We don't have, an economic development plan for the community. So it's not really the sheriff's department
Right.
issue. It is, part of it is because of what's happened to the community, but it's a bigger issue, like
Right.
it goes beyond that.
There's a part of me that sort of disagrees. I understand what you're saying. I constantly look back and forth between Skyway and White Center, and you want to look at an area that's, I worked there in the late 80s, 88, 89, and it is a shell of its former self. There are virtually no businesses. There's a casino and even the bowling alley. I don't even know if it's really a bowling alley anymore. And so White Center's, you may not feel it, but you have a vibrant business core, and in comparison, and okay, perhaps you may not like all the businesses that are here. I won't name any of them, but you have businesses. They have those too, and so, but you have, you have restaurants. I've walked up and down the street when we were having the problems with the alley. I walked up and there's a pizza place. I'm like, wow, this place looks really good. And you got the barbecue. There's all sorts of places, that I think, man, I would eat in here. This looks good. And so, but the same can be said about other communities. And I would just say that, I'm not trying to, blow smoke up anybody's backside, but you do have council members, and you do have, you have your USC, you have your government. And it's just a matter of communicating with your council members, and I know that both council members that represent both communities are very engaged and very active in these communities.
Yeah.
And you're really fortunate, based upon the smaller geography. You look in East King County, and you're looking at 1,600 square miles between two council members, up to Chelan County and Kittitas County. Not to mention your north and south borders, so.
Right, but what I'm saying is we would be better off if, we have, you're looking at, we have businesses in White Center. Yes, there's some great places to eat. A lot of people in the neighborhood won't go up there to bring their kids up there because it's not what they want their kids to see. We have 3 porn shops within a 2-block area and 8 marijuana dispensaries.
Right.
And so, it is part of, fortunately, there's been a moratorium on the marijuana dispensaries. The place is still open. And then it's up to us as citizens to report it and do code enforcement complaints. And then it takes time to get, these places shut down. And, I know we're fortunate to have that little business district. I know Skyway, and it is a different, that part of it is a different community. But there's still, we have a lot of issues here.
And I understand that. And I'll just make my final point is every time you go to, if you do go to a Seahawk game or a Mariner game, you pass those same businesses just about a half a block away from the Mariner Stadium. If you go to Pike Place Market, you have the same sort of businesses, far bigger than, and bigger lights, you know, in terms of those sort of CDs. I mean, so, you know,
But this is, but then too, this is a residential community too. I think
I
maybe
lived in
that's.
Pike Place Market for years. I lived on Post Avenue for a long time. But I understand, I'm sorry, point, counterpoint. Yes, sir, you've been waiting.
So, I'm used to standing up. I live, this is my fiance, and like she said, yeah, the gunshots. Me, I drive 2 hours a day, down and back, so 4 hours a day. I work down in Longview. I run the Port of Longview, and I run the Port of Seattle. Site supervisor, I run the cruise ship terminals, and hearing those gunshots at night. Plus, my grandmother, she sits in the
Both of our rooms are
Yeah.
in the front of the house, so
Right.
the bullet's gonna come through the wall. It was horrifying laying in bed and having him cover me with his body and not knowing if he was gonna catch a bullet because somebody was just driving up the street firing at random.
So, what she, you know, like she said, you know, yeah, I jumped on top of her, you know. I did 12 years of corrections. So, I know what you guys go through when it comes to understaffing. I know what the process is. And not so much, you know, these guys, like he said, there's a process, and he's right. Some of them drop out, just like flies. You can't just roll off the couch and think you're gonna be a correction officer or a police officer. It's to do the job. And I know that. So, on top of that, talk about what Elizabeth was saying, it takes one person in the community to step up and say, no, we're not gonna take this anymore. And then you'll have 19 others, or 20 others, or 50 others right behind to back you up. Okay? We can sit here and go, what if, and everything, but it takes one person. That one person will step up to do the whole community watch and that sort of thing. But for me, you know, like I said, I've been with her for 2.5 years. Yeah, I have a service weapon at the house. It's certified, it's registered, everything. So, you know, I'm protecting my house, you know, and, you know, the neighborhoods, they're getting older. So it's up to like someone like me to step up and say no. And 9 times out of 10, the families who's there, their kids are the ones that's doing the shooting, and they're not gonna say anything. So, we can sit here and do the what ifs, but like I said, just remember, it takes that one person. He can't do it by himself.
No, yes, certainly not.
So we gotta back him up as much as we can. So,
Well, it's all part of,
Yeah.
that's why people are here
Yeah.
tonight too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we have
So-
this
I think the point he's
council.
trying to make is we see a lot of whining, bitching, pissing, and moaning on the internet about this stuff happening. We're hearing a lot of whining, bitching, pissing, and moaning sitting here in this meeting. How many of you people actually pick up the phone and call them?
We
A
call
lot
it.
of-
Because that's what we get a lot on our street on Myers Way, is the sheriff's guys come out and they're like, well, why don't you call us? And it's like, I'm calling you now.
No.
We get that reaction a lot from you guys, is why don't you call us?
Can I point something out when it comes to, we had this in Skyway, earlier in the year was May, about when they had a big burst of violence that affected South Seattle, Skyway, in that community. There's a social issue component to this, and one of the pieces that we have to recognize as a community, and this goes well beyond this room, this is a larger community issue, is that if we accept violence in our communities, it becomes the norm. We prove that they don't care if I put a cop on every single corner, because I had a cop in Skyway pull over some gang members. They don't care if a cop is there on the traffic stop. They shot at the guys with the cop on the traffic stop, right there with them. I put a cop on every corner. That doesn't fix a social issue. If violence is accepted in our community, it's not the number of police officers on the corner, and I want my budget, so I'm not gonna go and make this, God, don't give us cops, that's not the solution, because cops are part of the solution, but it's not the whole solution. The social issue has to change. When we look at a community and we're looking at changes in our community, we have to look at us as partners in that change, not the change. We all have to find that solution together, and a lot of times the police department is, we're the 1% partner, you're the 99% partner. When we start looking at social issues, I don't know the answer. I don't think there's a politician out there house, they can all quit telling their stories, then knows the answer. I think the answer is a big, huge answer that we as a community have to figure out. If our young people are believing that it's okay to drive down the street shooting guns, we have a fundamentally much bigger problem than whether or not the cop's sitting on the corner to catch them. We have a fundamental problem that somebody's driving down the road shooting a gun, and psychologically that's okay. That's the bigger issue, and the number of cops doesn't fix that or not fix that. There's, whatever, 17,000 people served by 4 officers right now. The odds of us being on the right corner at the right time are almost non-existent. The fundamental issue has to change. So, I mean, throw that out there, just throw that out there, something to think about, that it's not necessarily always the number of cops. And I'm gonna make a budget pitch, tear down and yell and scream and throw rocks to get more cops in, and that's what we do. That's our job, is to represent the number of law enforcement here. But we have to fix the actual fundamental issue. It's like we talked, quite extensive discussions about the bog. I can go push everybody out of the bog tomorrow. I can go kick them all out of the bog tomorrow. It's real easy. It's not the problem. The problem is you have mental health and substance abuse issues that are leading them into the bog. If I can't fix those issues, we're wasting our time pushing them out. They're just gonna either go right back in or go to a different location. You have to look at what the core issues are. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. You call 911, we're gonna be there. That's our job, we're gonna respond. Sheriff's Office doesn't have any automatic calls that we discount. We take all calls, all comers. Every call counts is our motto, we'll come. But understand there's bigger social issues that we need to look at more as a community instead of looking at on an individual event. We need to look at the global problem. What's the problem here? The problem is somebody's driving down the road shooting a gun and this only generates 1 phone call. We have a bigger fundamental issue here that we need to look at. So
And also too,
something to keep in mind. It's-
most of the time too, you know, most of the gang members are getting younger too, and they're fearless.
Sure.
So most of them, they don't care.
Sure.
Just like you said, they don't care if you put another cop on the corner. It's like, oh.
It's not necessarily
Oh,
always the number of
cool.
cops. And sometimes we in government or we in society, we try to fix symptoms instead of fixing problems. You know, we need to look at the big picture on what's going on. If we have an acceptance of violence in our community, the fundamental issue is the number of cops. The fundamental issue is acceptance of violence in our community. So just keep that in mind.
Also,
Sorry,
No,
hands
she-
everywhere.
she's-
And I probably opened up a huge soapbox here. Mitch over here right now tapping his head like, really, this started this whole thing. We could be at home right now. Who was up? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Go on, Mercedes.
No, I was just gonna say that, thinking about Myers Way, that, I drive down there, but I just looked it on my phone, so it's more open, right? And it's at the end of Myers Way, it's really close to the Top Hat area, which is another hot potato issue right there, so there's a lot of, lawlessness in that area. I don't know how to deal with the openness, and that's probably why they drive crazy, because it's more,
It's a straight shot down the hill.
Yeah,
We have open
exactly,
complaints that this
exactly.
helps. There's an open complaint that our undercover detectives are currently working on that's
Yeah.
associated with the former Burning Boys and that general vicinity within about a block or two of there, which seems kind of be a hub with some of the
Wouldn't have to do
apartments
with
and
anything
Burning
with the
Boys
top
in
of the
that
truck that's
area.
open at 3 AM, would it?
I can tell you that some of our undercover detectives are currently working on issues related to that.
Right, so they-
Obviously, I
yeah.
don't wanna tell you everything they're working on, but I know that there's a current complaint from several residents of Top Hat
Yeah.
affecting that particular area, so I know that's one that's currently being worked
Is
on.
there any plans for that Bernie and Boys area and where Mr. Eds used to be and that station, like building something there?
I haven't
Well,
heard of
the
any, I don't think, I haven't seen any.
property owner claims that they're trying to sell that property, but I don't know.
No. I mean, it's an eyesore for one,
yeah.
and two, if there was something that was actually there,
But
it
they
would
have
probably
to
be less of a
get
problem.
somebody, I mean, the ideal is they have to get somebody to buy it and develop it, and that, you know,
I
right
tried
now.
contacting Winco.
Yeah.
Oh, Winco would be great there. I'd go.
And you also have to not go from, you don't go from 0 to 100, you know, you gotta go to 2 miles an hour to start. So I mean, you start looking at problems in your community, you start looking at, you know, my goal and the major's goal, we talk all the time, is I wanna make it better the day I leave than the day I showed up. Right? Major's on the downhill slide, he's gonna be out of here in a few years. He wants to say, wow, when he leaves, though, he wants to leave it a better place than when he showed up. So, I mean, that's kind of our focus is, let's start rolling the ball in the right direction, not necessarily let's get all the way there, and I think we saw it, look with the bog, you know, they're starting to roll the ball in the right direction, they're not worried about the finish line, they're worried about getting and keeping that ball rolling. So when you start thinking about community problems, it's also something to think about is, you said it. One person stands up, one person starts a website. I know Elizabeth and I have talked a little bit about communication in Top Hat. One person steps up and says, hey, I want to get 5 of my neighbors, and you get 5 of your neighbors, and all of a sudden you have a website, and this is what they've done really effectively in Skyways. They've gotten the whole community networked in by everybody getting 5 or 10 people, every community having a little neighborhood watch, and then linking them all together. And it's been very effective in their ability. They literally communicate within moments. Anything that happens in that community, they communicate. We don't do it.
And we're behind.
Yeah.
In comparison to, I mean, they'd love to have more communication from the sheriff's office, more instantaneous for sure.
That's the
I think
community
there's
doing
two
outreach.
things, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead, sir. No, go ahead.
There's two things we as citizens can do as far as I'm concerned. We can keep calling 911.
Yep.
You'll answer if you can. If you can't, you still got a record of it.
Yep.
That'll give the sheriff some tools to work with when he works with the county commission. The other thing is to keep leaning on the sheriff and the county commission that we need more help. Because if you don't give him the ammunition to then go up in county with, he doesn't have anything to yell about. So we've got to keep the pressure on him so he keeps the pressure on them, and eventually they'll have to listen or they're gonna go out of office. Thank you.
Yeah. My wife's a school teacher, and the way they notify the entire district when there's an emergency is every teacher calls 5 teachers. They literally can notify every teacher in their school by calling 5 teachers within a matter of a few minutes. Because it just grows so quick. When you call 5 teachers and tell them that there's this emergency, and then they all call the next 5, and they call the next 5, I mean, you need to connect your neighborhoods like that. And we have social media tools that help with that, but you need to link up with the people in your community and have effective communication. And we can help with it, but a lot of times, it's you guys. Hey, did you see that guy on the street? Who's this guy? Somebody knocked on my door, they were acting weird. When that goes out through the whole community within seconds, that is how you effectively police your community. Almost more so than the law enforcement. I mean, we're a presence in that, but that's how you really effectively communicate and police internally in your community. So when you start talking about what are the things you can do to get the ball rolling, it's start looking at how are we gonna link our communities? How do we link Top Hat? White Center is a big thing. How do I link myself to the street next to me is a little thing you can do. That's where you start. So,
We started one on our block, and now the next block is getting one going.
perfect, that's how you get the ball rolling. That's how that ball starts rolling, and then you connect to the one 2 blocks away.
Hopefully, well, they're getting down close to
And it
you
keeps
down
growing.
on Myers Way, the second block, down
Yeah.
at the end where the road ends.
Yeah.
We've manipulated your agenda. So.
No, it's very, it's exciting
Step down with my
stuff.
soapbox now.
But I think also in our community, we had a push, and this council started it really, about graffiti and getting graffiti covered, and Bob has helped tremendously with the crew that goes out, and Gil goes around photographing it, and we try to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And the Bernie and Boys was covered in graffiti, and it was a letter from our council to the owner, and continual letters to them to try to get it cleaned up, and that, those kind of things help in the community, to just not let this fester, because then it just does create that sense of lawlessness, and those people don't care.
And the other side of that is that. The other side of that is it makes you proud of your community, it makes people proud of your community. People who clean something up are less likely to make a mess of it, and it starts the ball going the other way. Instead of the broken windows, it starts the pride ball, pride of your community. You look at if the community builds the park will last forever with no damage. If we build the park, it'll be all broken down within a week. You have to have pride in what you're doing, and that's the other side of the broken windows. There is the pride. Clean up your community, and you have ownership and pride.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Did you have one?
I
You've
just
been
have
waiting,
a
I'm sorry.
comment. When we were very much wanting to have, and I live in the part of North Highline that was annexed to Burien, and I'm still carrying that torch. Because I believe that one of the things we need is a governing body that is responsible to us. It's very hard for the King County government to do the governing for this whole unincorporated area. And so I'm still thinking that, these problems that I have gunshots on my neighborhood too. I'm in that sort of no person zone between Burien, not that Burien isn't responding, if I would call, so what I think is, we have to ask ourselves, is there a difference between neighborhood watching to help and community acting together? Because as a community, we need to be looking at what to do with the mentally ill people, and there aren't that many of them. And we've got a big organization, Novus, what is it? Navos, right in Burien. So, and then helping others with their various issues. But we need a stronger, this group has been hanging on by their toenails without any money to really represent us in the community. And then when I was going out and knocking on doors to try to help people see the advantages of annexation, I talked to a deputy one time who was just coming down the street, and I asked him, he was already doing overtime. And what worried me was, I wonder, do you guys have enough backup so that when you are called out on a domestic violence call, that you actually have 2 of you to go? This community suffered a great loss with Steve Cox. He was a beloved member of this community. It just chills me to think that we didn't have the guts to get in there and say, we want that money to get our community built up better and to give our police force the backup that they need and the rest of the kinds of things that we need to address these bigger problems. But you can't do it on a tiny budget, on no budget that this group has.
Right, and there's 2 different things. There's the elected work that law enforcement does, and then there's the emergency work that law enforcement does.
Yeah.
If it's a domestic violence, a shooting, I have more cops than I could ever possibly need because we have mutual aid. I can call Burien, I can call Seattle, I can call Renton. I will have cops I'll have cops I didn't even know had police departments. Port of Seattle and Normandy, everybody's here. If it's an emergency, I can get all the cops in the world. If it's a community problem, those are not mutual aid calls, and I can't get any more cops than what I have. So I mean, the answer is there's 2 different, right, there is 2 different ways of viewing the police officer thing. As far as the actual safety side, I can get, if there's a school shooting right now, I will have so many cops, I won't know what to do with them. We have to have these big fancy tools to keep track of all the cops showing up. I can get cops for that. If it's a car on blocks in your neighborhood, if it's a graffiti problem, Normandy Park's not coming to help us with our graffiti problem. So, I mean, that's the difference. There's 2 different ways to look at the budgeting issues. That's why we're fortunate, you guys are amazingly fortunate that council has continued to fund the storefront positions, because that's the easiest cut for them to make for a discretionary cut, and they have continued to fund, and our sheriff has continued to insist on funding for storefronts, and that's a huge advantage to have an advocate in your community inside the sheriff's office. So, besides the Major and I, who will advocate away. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
And we'll see you next month.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
He'll be in the hot seat next time.
Yeah. I won't be here.
I must have done a bad job because they didn't let me talk.
You did fine. You did great.
We're glad to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, it's early tomorrow. No, we don't have.
So we're gonna, I see we have some new faces here tonight, so if you sign up on our, if you're on a, there's a list, a sign-up sheet, if you just put your email address, I would be happy to include people on the blast email I send out that just informs you about the upcoming meetings, so you don't forget about it. I mean, it's a great reminder.
I got a question to the
Yeah.
council, maybe you know, or maybe one of the detectives know, because one of the block watch people email me and say, do you know what's going on with all these trucks? There are in the city limits on Myers Way from about 99,
Yeah, and I noticed.
lining up all the streets, and one of
The dump trucks are down by the sand pits and down by the joint
they
training
wondered what that
facility,
was all about.
the Mormon church down at the bottom of my hill. And, they've been there, they showed up probably about, what, 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? And they've been lining either side of the road.
And there's no
And
indication.
on 108th, I noticed today, because I drive sometimes.
And there's
I
no
take first.
indication of why they're there, they're just parked?
Well, and the
they're
abandoned
just parked.
RV as well.
There's an abandoned RV, well, it might not be abandoned, because I'm seeing some kind of weird activity going on there, but, when I come home from work. But when I leave in the morning to go to work, the guys are getting in trucks and taking off and getting ready for it, getting ready for their day, and when I'm coming home, they're standing there chatting and taking off and leaving their trucks parked there
Well,
overnight.
is that in the city limits or in the unincorporated?
Yeah, I think it is in the
It's-
99th, I think it's about the power lines, the whole means.
Because if it's city, then, you know, you can contact the city of Seattle, their roads department, or,
Okay.
And they are doing things with the intersections on Roxbury down there. It's not Roxbury
I
anymore.
don't see any
These
words.
are like double trailer
no,
dump
this
trucks.
is not, yeah, this
Yeah.
is something different.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're doing anything local, Lord knows
Yeah,
where they're
they're just
going.
parking there.
They might be part of the Bertha project. I was thinking about that they might be parking there because it's closer down toward Bertha.
It's just the tractor,
It's
not the
just
trailer?
the trucks,
Yeah,
it's just the dump trucks and the
Oh.
extended trailers, so they're like double trailer, double loader dump trucks.
Yeah, they're-
And
yeah,
they
they
just
take
park
on the
there.
road.
So,
I've seen them go back and forth. It's
Yeah.
just for construction.
it's for construction, but it's weird because we've never had that on my street before, where they've just parked like that. And I'm not talking it's like one or two,
No,
I'm talking like 10 to 12 of them.
I live right up there in Top
Yeah.
Hat also.
Well, you know, if it, I don't
You
know
have-
if it's
there had
even
to be same
legal,
problem
but
in
you should
Georgetown.
contact, if it's in the city, call the city about it. Because it might not be legal for them to, it's probably just some contracting company that's parking them there. So, and if it's on the county property, I guess it's roads that would be concerned about that. So, yeah, and actually, I do, there's a number there for King County Roads. There's a little card for it on the table there. You might wanna check with that and see. Because I don't think it's legal to park those big trailers and all on
Well, it's not really residential, the residences run out before you get down to where you're at,
Yeah.
so. It's mostly at that sand and gravel pit near the Mormon church.
Okay. Anything else? So we'll just move on with the meeting and any committee reports or, okay? You're not gonna say anything about the moratorium?
I was enjoying it.
Okay. So we'll just go under, new business, so our December meeting, we don't have anybody lined up.
Shall I try Sheriff Urquhart again?
That might be good. We were
Yes.
missing Sheriff Urquhart tonight.
Yes.
You know what happened?
Yes, maybe,
He might have gotten called on a special.
You might have gotten
maybe,
special dinner.
yes. I would be more than happy.
Yes, okay, see if we can, okay, so we'll look at that. And then the January meeting is, I think it's like New Year's Day. So everybody plan on being here. But, so we're not gonna have a meeting on that Thursday, but what I would like for the council is to have a board meeting in January, maybe like the second week or third week in January. So maybe next December meeting, bring your calendars and see what date works. And we'll have a public meeting, of course, but maybe we can do it over dinner.
Sounds good.
You know, maybe like we know somebody that owns a restaurant.
Sounds good.
And we could do that, and everybody's invited. And we have a few things I think we can look at going over for next year, what we want to do as a council. And we have a new member, and that would be a good introduction for her to, see what we do. And so I hope everybody buys some candy tonight and support the Great Kiwanis group, and also show up at the baked potato dinner, right? And what's the date again, December?
December 2nd.
Second,
Second.
okay, and what night is that?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, December 2nd, okay.
6 to 8 p.m.
All right, so everybody, get
Well
your
worth
tickets. And so with that, yes,
May I just make a suggestion for a presentation? I would be interested in knowing what some of the public health problems
Yeah.
are in our area.
Yeah, I would have to echo Rachel, and I'm actually going to the King County Mental Health Legislative Forum, I believe it's next Thursday evening, with some folks from NAVOS and the Coalition for Drug-Free Youth. And I'm going to raise some of the issues that have come up and see also, how the league how we can start strengthening, kind of making connections and getting a larger focus on some of the symptoms that arise, some of the causes of the symptoms, and how an unincorporated area, what support the county folks downtown, and when he's there twice a week in the storefront deputy's office, can, how we can.
and that would be something good for our future meeting to
Well,
hear.
One of the things that I will am planning to do with others is to make sure, or to try to encourage the Burien City Council to not give up their potential annexation, what is it?
West area. The PAA, yeah.
Just because, maybe nothing will ever come from it, but if they give it up, then it would be very hard to ever go that way again.
Yeah.
So the idea is not so much to work on annexation as it is to have as they say, a voice at the table. And that includes all of North Highline too, because our kids go to school here. And the public health problems and the safety problems do not respect boundaries.
Certainly.
And so, we are all in it together. Anyway, thank you. I would love
No,
to-
I appreciate that, yes. Anything else? So I think we can call the meeting.
We adjourn.
Yes, second. All right, thank you, and bye Candy.
What the heck?